Welcome to part 2 of Starting Points, and this is a very short part. In it, I'm just going to lay out what it is that we will be talking about in Starting Points. And you might know what a table of contents is in a book. You open up a book, and one of the first pages, you'll see a table of contents. You'll see the chapter titles and maybe a bit more information. So chapter titles, a table of contents, a page that lists what's inside the book. Well, this is kind of a table of contents. And I mentioned in the previous video the things that we'd be talking about, and I'll just mention them quickly again. We're going to look at what it is that followers of Jesus believe. And so I call this the head and the heart, what we believe, what we know, what it is that Christians trust. So, the head and the heart, you might call it the inner life, the inner circle, the first circle. Secondly, we're going to look at what I call the second circle, how Christians should behave. And mainly, I'm going to be drawing on what is called the Sermon on the Mount, and that is found in Matthew's version of Jesus' life, chapters 5, 6, and 7. And in those 3 chapters, Matthew lays out Jesus' teachings for the behaviors that he expects of us, or to be more accurate, the behaviors that God expects of us, and Jesus is laying it out for us. The third thing we're going to look at is what God's people do together. So you might think of that as a third circle, the first one being the head and the heart, the inner life, the second circle, behaviors, how our whole body, what we say, where we go, what we do, our behaviors are the second circle. And the third circle takes out a bit further and involves other people, what God's people do together. And I think I mentioned in the previous video that this really boils down to being part of a church. And the reason for that is that when we are a part of a church, a number of things happen kind of automatically. I mean, they're going to need your participation, but they happen kind of automatically, because in any church where Jesus is presented clearly and with some kind of integrity, you're going to hear, you're going to study the Bible, the stories of Jesus and many others. The stories of Jesus are the heart of the Bible, but in church, there's going to be Bible study. There's going to be prayer. There's going to be opportunities to share friendship, or as some people like to call it, fellowship. There's going to be times of sharing joys and difficulties together. There's going to be meals. There are going to be mission experiences. I think especially if you're a younger person, try to be part of a church that organizes missions trips. When our kids were all at home, they went on several missions trips, and I think one of them was kind of cool because they went down to a warmer part of the world during the wintertime, I think down to Jamaica to do some missions with a church that was there. So missions trips, and there are mission trips for adults as well. So missions are part of the church. You're going to have opportunity to support leaders. You're going to have opportunity to learn, because God's people are learning people. Also in a church, there's going to be arts, music, for example, at worship, speaking and teaching. There will be the Lord's Supper, which we'll get into maybe a little bit later on. And there'll be definitely many opportunities to care for your neighbors. So those are the things that God's people do together. There may be a couple that I've missed, but those are the things God's people do together, and they are more or less automatic when you plug in regularly with a church. Fourth, we're going to reflect on the question, hey, all these things are going on. How do you and I fit into the movement? We should, I think of, well, I like to think of Christianity as a movement. It's a dynamic, active community. It's growing. It's doing all these things. It's being a light in the world. a movement. Where do I fit into this movement? That's the fourth thing I'm going to ask. And then fifth, we're going to look at the meanings of baptism, and we will look there at a number of the stories in the Bible, ones in which God's people go through water. So we'll look at the story of God's people crossing the Red Sea. We'll look at John the Baptist, him baptizing people in the Jordan River. We'll carry that kind of thinking a little bit further, because Jesus goes down into death and is raised up. It's like going down into water and coming back up again into new life. So we'll look at how all those kinds of things and a few others connect with each other. Those stories are my stories, and I think when a person is baptized, the person is saying, hey, those stories are my stories too. These people are my people. This God is my God. So we'll look at the meanings of baptism, and then I've got the last thing we'll do in the program is look at 6 questions which, if you can say yes to them, then I believe you are ready to be baptized.